Captain Yex grimaced. Military drones were designed to kill anything that wasn't specifically authorized to be aboard the vessel they were protecting. Approaching survivors through active drone defenses was basically a form of elaborate suicide. Food Service Coordinator Brix had been managing the cafeteria aboard the galactic freighter Stellar Harvest for 18 years, and in all that time he had never encountered a more frustrating employee than the human cook they had hired at the last station. It wasn't that the human was incompetent, exactly. The food he prepared was actually quite good, though he had an annoying habit of making dishes that were far too spicy for most species' digestive systems. No, what bothered Brix about cook Timothy Frost was the human's complete inability to follow basic kitchen safety protocols. "Frost!" Brix called out, his 4 tentacles waving in agitation as he watched the human perform what could generously be described as culinary acrobatics. "For the 3rd time this week, you cannot use the plasma torch as a cooking implement." Timothy looked up from the industrial food preparation station, where he had been using a maintenance tool to sear what appeared to be some kind of protein cube. He was average height for a human, maybe 6 feet tall, with sandy brown hair that refused to stay properly groomed, and green eyes that always seemed to be calculating something that had nothing to do with food preparation. "Sorry, boss," Timothy replied with the kind of cheerful tone that suggested he wasn't sorry at all. "The regulation cooking torches don't get hot enough for proper caramelization. Sometimes you need to improvise." "Improvise?" Brix's eye stalks twitched with frustration. "Frost, you're a cook, not an engineer. Your job is to prepare meals, not to modify equipment for purposes it was never designed for." "Actually," Timothy said, wiping his hands on a towel that looked suspiciously like it had been repurposed from the engine room, "cooking is basically just applied chemistry and engineering. Heat transfer, protein denaturation, molecular gastronomy, it's all the same principles." Brix felt his secondary stomach begin producing acid. "Frost, you have a culinary arts degree from some human institution. You are not qualified to make modifications to ship's equipment." "Well, technically, I also have degrees in mechanical engineering, applied physics, and advanced materials science," Timothy replied absently, returning to his work. "But I prefer cooking. It's more creative." "You have what degrees?" "Oh, and a certification in explosive ordnance disposal. That one's actually pretty useful for kitchen work. You'd be surprised how much cooking and bomb defusal have in common." Brix stared at the human, trying to process this information. "Frost, are you telling me that you're qualified to disarm military explosives, among other things?" "Yeah. But honestly, the skills transfer really well to cooking. Precision, timing, understanding how different compounds react under pressure. It's all relevant. Why in the name of the Great Spiral are you working as a cook on a freight hauler if you have advanced degrees in engineering and military specializations?" Timothy shrugged, a gesture that Brix 14 had learned indicated either indifference or the prelude to something that would give him a headache. "I like traveling, I like meeting new species, and I really like cooking. This job lets me do all 3. But surely you could make more money working as an engineer or a military contractor." "Probably. But money isn't everything. Besides, you never know when diverse skill sets might come in handy." Before Brix could ask what that was supposed to mean, the ship's intercom crackled to life with the voice of Captain Yex, a gruff old spacer who had been hauling cargo across the galaxy since before Timothy's species had achieved faster-than-light travel. "All hands, this is the captain. We've got a situation developing. Long-range sensors are picking up what appears to be a disabled vessel broadcasting distress signals. We're altering course to investigate." Brix's tentacles drooped with resignation. In his experience, situations aboard freight haulers usually involved either pirates, equipment failures, or cargo that turned out to be more dangerous than the shipping manifests indicated. None of these possibilities improved when humans were involved. "Frost," he said, "I want you to finish meal preparation and secure the kitchen. If we're responding to a distress call, there's no telling what we might encounter." "Understood, boss." Timothy began efficiently organizing his workspace with the kind of systematic precision that seemed out of place in someone whose official job description was food preparation specialist. 20 minutes later, the Stellar Harvest dropped out of hyperspace near a vessel that Captain Yex immediately identified as a Korthak military transport. The ship was clearly in distress, with multiple hull breaches and no power signatures. What made the situation concerning was that Korthak military vessels didn't just break down. They were either destroyed in combat or abandoned for very specific reasons. "Captain," announced Navigation Officer Dex, "I'm reading life signs aboard the disabled vessel. Approximately 12 individuals, mostly Korthak, but there are some energy signatures I can't identify. Probably survivors from whatever attacked them," Captain Yex replied grimly. "Helm, take us to docking range. Engineering, prepare to extend a boarding tube, and someone get our human cook up here." Brix, who had been monitoring the situation from the kitchen, felt his anxiety spike. "Captain, why do you need Frost?" "Because," Captain Yex replied, "if we're boarding a disabled military vessel that might contain hostiles, I want someone with combat experience watching our backs. And unless I'm mistaken, our cook has more military training than the rest of the crew combined." "How did you know about that?" "Kid, I've been flying freight for 60 years. I can spot a soldier trying to blend in from 3 star systems away. The way he moves, the way he scans for exits every time he enters a room, the fact that he can field strip a plasma rifle faster than he can dice vegetables. Either he's military, or he's the most paranoid cook in the galaxy." Timothy's voice came over the intercom from the kitchen. "Actually, Captain, it's both, but I prefer to think of it as being thoroughly prepared for any culinary emergency. Frost, get up here. We need to discuss boarding procedures." "On my way, Captain. Should I bring my knives?" "What kind of knives?" "Well, I've got my regular kitchen set, but I also have some specialized tools that might be more appropriate for close quarters work." Captain Yex exchanged glances with his bridge crew, most of whom were now staring at the intercom with expressions of growing concern. "Frost," the captain said carefully, "exactly what kind of specialized tools are you talking about?" "Oh, you know. Standard utility items, multi-purpose implements, things that can handle both food preparation and other requirements." 5 minutes later, Timothy arrived on the bridge, carrying what appeared to be a standard kitchen knife roll. He had changed from his cook's uniform into dark utility clothing that somehow made him look both more professional and significantly more dangerous. "Reporting for duty, Captain," Timothy said, unrolling his knife collection on the navigation console. "I've brought a selection of tools that should handle most contingencies." Rick stared at the array of implements, trying to understand why kitchen knives looked so much more threatening when arranged with military precision. "Frost, those look like normal cooking utensils." "They are," Timothy replied cheerfully. "But really good kitchen knives can handle a lot more than just food preparation. It's all about understanding the tools and applying them creatively." Captain Yex examined the knife collection with the eye of someone who had seen his share of weapons over the years. "Frost, these are very nice knives, but we're potentially dealing with armed hostiles on a military vessel. Are you sure you don't want something with a bit more stopping power?" "Captain, with respect, the most dangerous weapon on any ship is usually the person holding it, not the tool they're using. Besides," Timothy picked up what appeared to be a simple soup spoon from his collection, "you'd be amazed what you can accomplish with the right kitchen implement if you understand leverage, pressure points, and basic anatomy. You're going to fight potential pirates with a spoon? If necessary. Though I'm hoping we can resolve any conflicts through creative problem-solving rather than direct confrontation." Navigation Officer Dex looked up from his sensors. "Captain, the boarding tube is secured. We're reading stable atmosphere in the disabled vessel's main corridor, but I'm detecting some kind of automated security system still active." "What kind of security system?" "Military-grade defensive drones. Looks like they're on autonomous patrol mode, probably protecting the survivors from whatever attacked the ship." "That's a problem," the captain said. "Those drones will target anyone who boards without proper authorization codes." "How many drones are we talking about?" Timothy asked, apparently more curious than concerned. "Sensor readings suggest at least 6 units, probably more. Each one is equipped with energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, and enough armor to stop most small arms fire." "Interesting design challenge," Timothy mused, studying the sensor readings with obvious professional interest. "What's their patrol pattern?" "Random sweep cycles, overlapping coverage, coordinated defensive positions. Standard military doctrine for protecting valuable assets. And they're programmed to engage any unauthorized personnel?" That's how military drones work, yes. Timothy nodded thoughtfully, then began selecting items from his knife roll with the methodical precision of someone planning a complex meal. Captain, I'd like to volunteer for the boarding party. Frost, these are military combat drones. They're designed to kill soldiers with advanced weapons and armor. You're a cook with kitchen knives. Actually, Captain, I'm a cook with kitchen knives. Advanced degrees in engineering and explosive ordnance disposal, military training and 18 months of experience improvising solutions to impossible problems in zero-gravity food service environments. Rix felt his headache returning. What does zero-gravity food service have to do with combat drones? Well, when you're preparing meals in weightless conditions with limited resources and unreliable equipment, you learn to think creatively about problem solving. You develop an appreciation for precision, timing, and the creative application of available tools. You're talking about fighting military drones with cooking equipment. I'm talking about neutralizing automated defense systems using principles of mechanical engineering, applied physics, and improvisational technology modification. Timothy picked up his soup spoon again, examining it with the eye of someone evaluating a precision instrument. Plus, I've always wanted to field test some theories about kinetic energy transfer and electromagnetic pulse generation using common household items. Captain Yex stared at the human cook, trying to decide if Timothy was completely insane or some kind of tactical genius. Frost, are you seriously suggesting that you can disable military combat drones using kitchen utensils? Captain, I once prepared a 7-course meal for 36 beings from 12 different species using nothing but a broken food processor, 3 heating elements, and a collection of spare parts from the engine room. Compared to that, neutralizing some automated security systems should be relatively straightforward. That's food preparation, not combat. Sir, with respect, the principles are basically the same. You identify the problem, analyze available resources, develop a strategy, execute with precision, and adapt as circumstances change. Timothy tucked the spoon into his belt like a sidearm. The only real difference is the stakes involved. Navigation Officer Dex looked up from his sensor display. Captain, I'm reading increasing energy signatures from the disabled vessel. The drones appear to be responding to our presence. If we're going to board, we need to do it soon, before they go into full combat mode. Captain Yex looked around his bridge, taking in his crew of cargo haulers and freight specialists, then at the human cook, who was preparing to assault a military vessel, armed with soup spoons and an unshakable confidence in the creative application of kitchen equipment. Frost, he said finally, if you get yourself killed trying to fight war drones with cooking utensils, I'm putting it in your permanent record. Understood, Captain. Though technically, if I get killed, my permanent record will be the least of my concerns. And if you somehow manage to neutralize those drones with kitchen equipment, I'm recommending you for immediate promotion to whatever department handles impossible things that shouldn't work but do anyway. That's very generous, Captain. I'll try not to disappoint you. As Timothy headed toward the airlock, Brix called after him. Frost, at least tell me you have some kind of plan. Timothy paused at the airlock door, soup spoon in hand, and smiled, with the kind of confidence that suggested he had never encountered a problem that couldn't be solved through the creative application of culinary science. Boss, he replied, I'm going to cook them. Timothy Frost stepped through the boarding tube into the disabled Korthak military transport with the casual confidence of someone entering a familiar kitchen. The corridor was dimly lit by emergency power, casting long shadows that would have made most beings nervous. Timothy, however, seemed more interested in the technical specifications of the automated defense systems than the ominous atmosphere. Fascinating design, he muttered to himself, examining scorch marks on the walls that indicated recent weapons fire. Standard military hardening, redundant power systems, modular construction for easy repair. Whoever built this really understood defensive architecture. Behind him, through the boarding tube's communication link, he could hear Captain Yex coordinating with the bridge crew. Frost, what's your status? Initial reconnaissance complete, Captain. The corridor design suggests a typical Korthak military layout. Central command hub, defensive positions at regular intervals, and... oh, hello there. The war drone that rounded the corner at the far end of the corridor was exactly what Timothy had expected based on the sensor readings. Roughly human-sized, heavily armored, bristling with weapon systems and moving with the mechanical precision of a killing machine that had never questioned an order in its artificial life. It stopped when its sensors detected Timothy, rotated its weapon systems toward him, and announced in the flat tone of military automation, "Unauthorized personnel detected. Submit for identification, scanning, or prepare for termination." "Well," Timothy said conversationally, pulling the soup spoon from his belt, "that's certainly direct. I appreciate clear communication in high-stress situations." The drone's sensors focused on the spoon. Threat assessment, minimal. Weapon classification, none detected. Proceeding with termination protocol. "You know," Timothy continued, apparently unconcerned by the multiple weapon systems now tracking his movement, "that's exactly the kind of thinking that makes automated systems predictable. You're analyzing threat based on conventional weapon signatures, but you're not accounting for creative applications of available resources." The drone fired. What happened next would be analyzed by military engineers for decades, though most of them would conclude that the official reports had to be exaggerated. According to the sensor data from both the disabled transport and the stellar harvest, Timothy Frost somehow used a standard kitchen utensil to deflect a military-grade energy beam back at the drone that fired it. The deflected energy struck the drone's primary sensor array, causing a cascade failure that temporarily blinded its targeting systems. During the 3.7 seconds it took for backup systems to come online, Timothy had somehow crossed 15 meters of corridor and was now standing directly beside the confused machine. "The thing about military drones," Timothy explained to the weapon platform that was trying to target him at point-blank range, "is that they're designed for long-range combat against conventional opponents. They're not optimized for close-quarters technical troubleshooting." He inserted the handle of his soup spoon into what appeared to be a maintenance access port on the drone's side panel. "For instance," he continued, applying leverage in a way that seemed to violate several laws of physics, "if you understand the internal architecture of automated systems, you can usually find ways to provide alternative input that bypasses standard operational parameters." The drone stopped moving. Its weapon systems powered down. Its optical sensors dimmed to standby mode. "What did you do?" Captain Yex's voice came through the communication link, tinged with disbelief. "Basic percussive maintenance," Timothy replied, withdrawing his spoon from the now inactive drone. "I convinced its central processor that it was experiencing a critical system error and needed to shut down for emergency diagnostics." "You hacked a military drone with a soup spoon?" "I provided alternative operational input through a standard maintenance interface. The spoon was just the delivery mechanism." "That's impossible." "Captain, with respect, impossible is just another word for a solution that hasn't been properly explained yet." Timothy continued down the corridor, soup spoon in hand, approaching the next intersection where sensor readings indicated two more defensive units were waiting in coordinated ambush positions. "Frost," Captain Yex called. "Sensors show multiple hostiles ahead. Maybe we should reconsider this approach." "Actually, Captain, I think we're about to have a breakthrough in human-machine relations." The two drones that emerged from their concealed positions were clearly operating under updated tactical parameters. Instead of the standard identify and terminate protocol, they had adapted their approach based on data from their disabled colleague. "Unknown entity," the lead drone announced. "You have demonstrated non-standard capabilities. State your intentions and submit to enhanced security screening." "Oh, excellent," Timothy replied with genuine enthusiasm. "You're learning from experience and adapting tactics accordingly. That shows much more sophisticated programming than standard military automation. Your compliance is required." "Well, I appreciate the politeness, but I'm afraid I can't comply with security screening right now. I'm on a bit of a schedule." Timothy examined his spoon thoughtfully. "However, I'd be happy to demonstrate some alternative approaches to conflict resolution." What followed was less a combat engagement and more a practical demonstration of applied physics using kitchen utensils. Timothy somehow used the curved surface of his spoon to redirect the electromagnetic targeting beams that the drones were using to coordinate their attacks, causing them to lock on to each other instead of their intended target. The resulting confusion lasted just long enough for Timothy to approach each drone and apply what he cheerfully described as corrective maintenance procedures, using the handle of his spoon as a precision tool for accessing critical system interfaces. 2 more units neutralized, he reported to the bridge. I'm starting to understand their operational parameters. Quite elegant, really. Whoever programmed these systems has a good grasp of tactical adaptation principles. Frost, Breck's voice came through the communication link. Please tell me you're not complimenting the things that are trying to kill you. Well, they're trying to kill me very efficiently and with obvious attention to technical excellence. I believe in giving credit where it's due. Timothy reached the central corridor intersection, where sensor readings indicated the remaining 3 drones had established a coordinated defensive position that would be impossible to approach without being caught in overlapping fields of fire. Now this is interesting, he observed, studying the tactical situation. They've learned from the previous encounters and established a mutual support formation that eliminates the vulnerabilities I exploited earlier. Does that mean you can't get past them? Captain Yex asked. Oh, it means I need to try a different approach. Fortunately, military tactical programming tends to be very logical, which makes it predictable in its own way. Timothy reached into his utility belt and pulled out what appeared to be a simple kitchen timer. Frost, what are you doing with that? Creating a learning opportunity for our automated friends. You see, military drones are programmed to respond to specific threat categories: weapons, explosives, unauthorized personnel, and so forth. But they're not usually programmed to handle kitchen equipment that's being used in non-standard applications. He wound the kitchen timer to maximum setting and rolled it down the corridor toward the drone formation. The response was immediate and exactly what Timothy had predicted. All 3 drones identified the rolling object as a potential explosive device and focused their weapons systems on it, coordinating their fire to ensure complete destruction of the perceived threat. The kitchen timer, being constructed of standard food service materials, was indeed completely destroyed by the concentrated weapons fire. However, the energy discharge from 3 military-grade weapon systems firing simultaneously in a confined space created an electromagnetic pulse that temporarily disrupted the drone's own coordination systems. During the 4.2 seconds it took for their systems to reboot and reestablish network connectivity, Timothy had somehow crossed the intersection and was now standing behind their defensive formation. The beautiful thing about coordinated tactics, he explained to the 3 confused war machines, is that they depend on communication and mutual support. Disrupt the communication, and the coordination breaks down. He proceeded to apply his corrective maintenance technique to all 3 drones in rapid succession, using his soup spoon with the precision of a surgeon and the efficiency of someone who had clearly done this sort of thing before. All hostiles neutralized, he reported to the bridge. Proceeding to survivor location. Frost, Captain Yex said slowly. Did you just defeat 6 military combat drones using a soup spoon and a kitchen timer? Well, technically, the kitchen timer was expendable. The real work was done by understanding the operational logic of automated defense systems and applying appropriate technical solutions. You're talking about disabling war machines like they're broken appliances. Captain, in my experience, most problems are just systems that aren't working as intended. Whether it's a clogged drain, a malfunctioning hyperdrive, or a hostile defense platform, the principles are basically the same. Identify the root cause, apply the appropriate corrective action, and verify that the system returns to desired operational parameters. Timothy reached the sealed blast door that separated him from the survivors. According to his readings, 12 beings were on the other side, probably taking shelter from whatever had disabled their ship in the first place. Attention survivors, he called through the door's communication system. This is Cook Timothy Frost from the civilian freighter Stellar Harvest. We're here to provide assistance. Please stand back from the door while I work on the access controls. Cook? Came a confused voice from the other side. Did you say Cook? That's correct. Though I should mention that I also have some experience with technical systems and conflict resolution. What happened to our defense drones? Oh, they're fine, just taking a little nap while we sort things out. Don't worry, they'll be back to normal operation once we get your main power systems restored. Timothy examined the blast door's control panel, which had been damaged in whatever attack had disabled the ship. Interesting. Looks like someone used a focused electromagnetic pulse to overload your primary systems. Very professional work. Probably military-grade equipment. Can you get us out? The voice asked. Absolutely. Though I should warn you, my approach to technical problems tends to be somewhat unconventional. Timothy pulled out what appeared to be a standard can opener from his utility belt. Captain, he called back to the bridge. I'm going to need about 5 minutes to work on this door mechanism. The survivors are secure, but they're trapped by damaged control systems. A can opener? Brix's voice came through the link with obvious disbelief. You're going to open a military blast door with a can opener? Well, technically, I'm going to use the can opener to access the manual override mechanism that's hidden behind the primary control panel. The designers probably assumed that only someone with detailed knowledge of Korthak engineering would know where to look for it. And you have detailed knowledge of Korthak engineering? I have detailed knowledge of how things are put together, which is basically the same thing. Plus, I've always been curious about alien technology. True to his word, Timothy had the blast door open in exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. The survivors who emerged were a mix of Korthak military personnel and civilian passengers, all of whom stared at the human cook with expressions ranging from gratitude to complete bewilderment. You defeated our defense system? Asked the ranking Korthak officer, a veteran soldier whose armor bore the scars of multiple campaigns. I convinced it to take a break, Timothy replied diplomatically. Your drones are very well designed, by the way. Excellent tactical programming and adaptive capabilities. And you did this with kitchen equipment? I did this with an understanding of systems engineering and the creative application of available tools. The fact that those tools happen to be kitchen utensils is really just a coincidence. The Korthak officer studied Timothy with the expression of someone trying to process information that didn't fit any known categories. Human, what exactly is your background? I'm a cook, Timothy replied cheerfully, though I also have some education in related fields. 3 hours later, the survivors had been transferred to the Stellar Harvest. The damaged military transport had been secured, and Timothy had somehow managed to restore the disabled defense drones to full operational status, using what appeared to be a combination of technical expertise and percussive maintenance. Frost, Captain Yex called as Timothy returned to the bridge, still carrying his soup spoon like a badge of office. I need to ask you something. Ourselves accidentally. Of course, Captain. How can I help? In your professional opinion, as someone with degrees in engineering and military experience and an apparent ability to defeat war machines with kitchen utensils, why exactly are you working as a cook on a freight hauler? Timothy considered the question seriously. Well, Captain, cooking is creative problem-solving under pressure, with limited resources for people who are depending on you to provide exactly what they need, exactly when they need it. It requires technical knowledge, improvisation skills, an understanding of chemistry and physics, and the ability to adapt quickly when things don't go according to plan. That sounds like a description of military operations, or engineering projects, or emergency repairs, or diplomatic negotiations. Timothy smiled. The beautiful thing about cooking is that it teaches you skills that transfer to almost any other field. Plus, people are always happy to see you when you're the person who makes their food. And the military training? The advanced degrees? Well, you never know when diverse skill sets might come in handy, like today, for instance. Brix, who had been listening to this conversation with growing amazement, finally spoke up. Frost, you disabled 6 military combat drones with a soup spoon and a kitchen timer. That's not normal, transferable skill development. Boss, with all due respect, normal is just another word for problems that haven't gotten interesting yet. As the Stellar Harvest resumed course for its original destination, carrying its original cargo plus 12 grateful survivors and the kind of story that would make Timothy Frost a legend in freight hauling circles, Captain Yex made a note in his personal log. Recommend immediate policy change regarding crew background checks. Also recommend hazard pay increase for galley staff who may be significantly more dangerous than their job descriptions indicate. Timothy, meanwhile, returned to his kitchen to prepare dinner for the expanded crew, humming quietly to himself and occasionally polishing his soup spoon, which had somehow acquired the status of both cooking utensil and specialized technical instrument. Just another day in the food service industry, he said to himself, beginning preparations for what would undoubtedly be the most well-defended meal in galactic freight hauling history. After all, You never knew when culinary skills might save the day. 2 weeks later, word of the soup spoon incident had spread throughout the freight hauling community, and Timothy found himself fielding unusual requests from other ship captains. The first inquiry came from Captain Zala of the merchant vessel Cosmic Wanderer. "Frost," came the transmission during their regular supply stop. "I heard you can fix military hardware with kitchen equipment. Is that true?" "Well," Timothy replied carefully, "I can solve technical problems using available resources. The specific tools involved depend on what's at hand and what needs to be accomplished. We've got a situation. Pirates disabled our defensive systems with some kind of jamming device. Standard repair crews say it'll take weeks to fix, but we're on a tight delivery schedule." "What kind of defensive systems?" "Standard merchant protection grid. Nothing too sophisticated, but the jamming left everything scrambled. Even our communication arrays are affected." Timothy considered this while stirring a sauce that required precise temperature control. "Captain Zala, jamming devices work by introducing interference patterns into electronic systems. If I understand your setup correctly, the solution might involve recalibrating your signal processors to filter out the artificial noise. Can you do that?" "Probably. Though I should mention that my approach tends to involve improvised tools and unconventional methods." "At this point, unconventional sounds good. What would you need?" "Access to your engineering section, a basic toolkit, and permission to borrow some items from your galley." "Your galley? What kind of items?" "Oh, standard cooking equipment. Whisk, strainer, maybe a pressure cooker if you have one. The key is understanding how signal processing works and then applying appropriate filtering techniques." 3 days later, Timothy had not only restored the Cosmic Wanderer's defensive systems, but had somehow improved their efficiency by 15% using what the crew described as aggressive signal clarification through culinary-based filtration methods. "The amazing thing," Captain Zealot reported to her shipping company, "is that he explained the entire process in terms of making soup. Something about removing impurities from a mixture to achieve the desired consistency and flavor profile." Word spread further. Soon Timothy was receiving requests for consultation on everything from malfunctioning hyperdrives to diplomatic negotiations gone wrong. Each situation required a different approach, but the underlying principle remained the same. Treat every problem as a system that needed the right kind of corrective input. "Frost," Captain Yex observed during one of their regular route runs, "you've accidentally become the galaxy's most sought-after technical consultant." "I prefer to think of it as expanding my customer base," Timothy replied, putting the finishing touches on a meal that incorporated elements from 17 different planetary cuisines. "Good cooking is all about understanding what people need and figuring out how to provide it using available ingredients. And the fact that your available ingredients now include military hardware and diplomatic crises? Well," Timothy said with a grin, "variety is the spice of life."